these unprecedented times, we are all still working. IAAPA is still open, and we are working for you. One of the things that we're doing during this time when so many of our different beloved members are working from home are checking in on them, only to find out exactly not only what are they working on, but also to share some best practices, some tips, and some other ideas as the global attractions industry continues to work and also work on what's next. So who better than to talk about working from home and how do you stay creative? How do you motivate your employees when you just can't see them because so many of us are commuting rather from our homes into our home offices, just like mine. So joining us today, say good morning here to Cynthia Sharp as well as Brian Morrow. Cynthia Sharp is with ThinkWell. However, although ThinkWell is based in Los Angeles, California, Cynthia is in Kansas. Cynthia, tell us, where are you?
I'm in Overland Park, Kansas, and the entire time that I've worked for ThinkWell, which is over 16 years, I've been here, not LA. So telecommuting is another day that ends in Y for me.
There you go. And Brian Morrow, who is the founder of B. Morrow Productions here in Orlando, Florida. Hey, Brian.
Good morning, everybody. Hi.
How you doing there at home?
We're in sunny Florida, separated by miles from my team, but we're all here working hard, so we're doing awesome.
Fantastic. Let's talk about that team. When it comes to staying creative, trying to motivate folks, Cynthia, we'll start with you. What is one way that you have found over your 16 years that you stay not only connected, but at the same time stay motivated and stay creative with your team?
So over the course of 16 years, technology has changed a lot. When I first started with ThinkWell, we didn't have webcams, we didn't have smartphones, and it was a lot harder then to stay connected and stay creative. As both a leader in the company and a creative director, I have to kind of wear two different creativity hats. I have to fuel my own creativity, but I also have to help others maintain and increase their own creativity.
Sure.
And what I found over the years is that really it's about building relationships of trust, because being creative means to take risks. It means to put out ideas that haven't necessarily been tested before, or you haven't thought them all the way through. And it's really hard to do that if you're not feeling comfortable and safe and in an environment that will not knock you down for doing those kinds of things. So I spend an awful lot of time and energy with my teams. I'm really intentional about the comments I give and how I give them, so that any critique is a building block for future and not a, no, this isn't the thing it needs to be. It's a, this needs to do this other thing and it's not quite doing that yet. How can we get to that point? And by being intentional and mindful with the criticism, even if it's really wildly off the mark, it's not a shutdown of someone's creativity. I'm really careful in thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the pyramid of what we need in order to reach full creativity and full self-actualization. And right there at the base, it's the basic physical things in life. And then right above it is safety and security, both intellectual and physical. And right now in the current situation, a lot of people have been knocked down from towards the top of that pyramid all the way back to the bottom. And if they were already towards the bottom, their mental state and their situation is even more precarious now. So we're doing a lot of check-ins. We're doing a lot of how you doings. We're doing a lot of that kind of stuff to help people feel safe and secure.
Brian, how about you when it comes to checking in with your team? As we like to say, you're small but mighty. How many full-time employees do you have?
We're 7 full-time employees and a nice little army of freelance talent that works for us as well, which is awesome. And really staying connected, and I apologize, I can't hear Cynthia's answers, so I'm flying blind. If I repeat, I apologize, but I think I know what she's saying. But for us, it was really about trust and transparency as well with our team. This all happened immediately and at once, separating the team from each other, the chaos of the industry changing, our projects going on pause or even being canceled. And so being very transparent with our team, I found to be the most important tool in order to keep everybody calm. So uncertain, we didn't know what was happening. So being super transparent kept everybody calm. What was happening, and literally texting everybody by the hour as we found out news or information on what projects were proceeding forward or which ones weren't. once we got past that triage, it really is allowing us now to connect and be more productive in actually the work that we do have to do, which we do have work to do, which is fantastic, and we're very happy. And so getting that, getting that triage out of the way and mourning the loss of those projects and having the moment to say that happened and we're moving on is really now allowing us to focus on getting the work done. And we're using all the same tools that everyone else is using. And there's no magic button or bullet of the tools that you use to communicate with either your clients or your internal team, et cetera. But the most important thing is that the tools are the tools, but the most important thing is that you've cleared the way to get the weight of the chaos and the pandemic off of the shoulders of your team in order for them to actually breathe and do the work. So we still talk weekly and sometimes bi-weekly about the situation that we're in, but we're no longer evaluating it by the hour or by the day. We're actually evaluating it in 2-week increments now because we've stabilized. It's great. But now we can actually get some work done as well because the team isn't spending this bandwidth working on and worrying about their jobs or et cetera. They can now refocus on the work at hand, which has been really, really fantastic. And it's proven to be successful, just that transparency and trust with the team.
And you call that hyper transparent, correct?
I am so. I've been on both sides of the industry seesaw, if you will, from the owner side, which went through a few of my own chaotic moments with SeaWorld and Busch Gardens brand back in the day, and so I've seen it from that direction. Now I see it from my direction, owning my own studio and production team. Hyper transparent literally means via text message or we use Monday for our communication tools, updating the team on what projects are real and what ones aren't anymore. But then the reverse, and that seems weird to like inform, hourly graphic designers of what's happening strategy. But by doing so, they no longer were worried about what was going to happen just because they knew I was going to tell them what is going to happen. Being very, very truthful and honest. And what I found that not sharing the truth doesn't protect them. It just makes them worry more. But sharing the actual truth, like this week we're good. I don't know what's happening next week, but let's get this week done. Really allowed the team to not be focused and putting energy into the basic necessities of survival and let them on the work at hand.
So it sounds like there was a switch. There's the survival switch that then turns to the creative switch. Cynthia, tell me a little bit about, because you have been in the industry quite a long time, a lot of great longevity. You've seen projects come, you've seen projects go. How do you turn that switch from, let's say, a survival standpoint to more of a creative standpoint and getting back to work?
So it's not a one and done, particularly in a situation like this. The reality is what's going on right now. It's not a singular traumatic incident. Things are continuing to unfold. The situation is changing out in the world on a daily basis. And so it is an ongoing trauma, and we haven't gotten to a point societally where the worst is over, we can now pivot. And so I think it's important to realize that there are going to be moments where it's going to be a little bit, okay, back into survival mode, what do we need to do? Because this project has now said it's going on pause or it's sliding or what have you. And acknowledge that people are going to have to, as Brian said, acknowledge the feelings and then be prepared to move on. Radical candor is a big part of it. Brian refers to hyper-transparency. Radical candor is a big part of it. And making space as frequently as needed for people to come together, deal with their feelings. Some days they're not going to. Some days they're going to be like, nope, I'm good. And some days they're going to need a little bit of time to process together as a group. We're scrumming daily, and we keep part of that scrum in these small teams for, this is your time to check in with one another. How are you doing? And by building that relationship, we're able to do things like one person saying, my kid went back to online school today and I'm going to keep getting interrupted. Can somebody else take this meeting for me? And acknowledging how disruptive the situation is and honoring each other's needs for their creative process. We're being really, really mindful about that. And letting people express to other members on the team, this is what's working for me now in terms of my creative process. How can my creative process in this situation dovetail with your creative process? Because we have people who are like, I am getting so interrupted with my kids. I need this 2-hour block every day in order to just sit down and write. I know Brian speaks really eloquently about his team beginning to work in wildly different ways. That core competency that they've had or a core industry that they've worked in, that person now being allocated onto something else. I had the same situation. I had to write a show, and that's not my bailiwick. And it was the hardest thing I'd ever done, not only because it was new, but because I'm thinking about my kid's asthma medication and does he have a good enough webcam for online school? And it literally took me saying to a colleague, it is taking me longer to write this than I thought it would, and getting explicit permission to go through my process and that it's okay. Right. That helped me get back into my creative self. And so radical candor and being really, really graceful with each other and understanding and just keeping that communication flow open. It's about knowing you're safe and that people have your back.
Absolutely. Now, as we talk to Cynthia and Brian, if you have a comment, please let us know. Clara says, radical candor, love it. If you have a question again, just go ahead and type it in and we will relay that to our panel of experts. Brian is smiling there. Brian, when we think about different topics and different things that, let's say, we're good at, right? Different disciplines, different skills, you have found that in this time of uncertainty, that you are actually, you're going to be the timeout. Brian's leaving. All right, so we've lost our first guest. Hopefully Brian comes back. So Cynthia, during, let's say, this time of uncertainty, Brian, thanks for joining us. During this time of uncertainty, tell us, how do you, let's say, are you able to press your comfort zone and take on maybe new challenges that allow you to grow?
Was that to me or Cynthia?
Well, Brian, that was to you before you escaped and walked off the set.
Well, like in the middle of working at home, my landscape guy is like blowing off my front patio outside my office, so I had to no, not going to work. So
gotcha. Thank you.
So Scott, the question.
Quality control, right?
Yeah. The question was about using.
You have found some success here recently, and going outside, let's say, Be More Productions creative zone, that you have lots of folks with different skills and different backgrounds, and they all work together, all 7 of you. However, you found yourself actually getting creative in new ways that has generated business leads. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So before the pandemic, we were all in like this super awesome era of like fast design, lots of projects. It was a very aggressive moment, and we were all just churning and working and just like cranking out awesome work. Pandemic comes, everything slows down. The marketplace completely flips upside down. I think like a big iceberg, like 2 days went like this. To the whole industry and supply and demand. So all of a sudden there's all this supply happening and less demand. So that happened in my company. So all of a sudden, what do I do with the supply, the talent that I have, either internal full-time or external freelance talent that we use here in Orlando? And I just redeployed. It took me about a day to figure it out. I had to get my breath and my feet underneath me. But then finding out, and a great example, one of my clients is a large-scale resort in the Bahamas, also closed. But guess what they asked us to work on? Like, hey, Brian, you guys are good at guest flow and guest experience. Could you write a script for what our website experience might be for this new water park we're building? I'm like, yeah, we'll do that. And I reached out to my team and I said, hey, we got this cool assignment. We've got 4 days to do it. What do you want to do? And one of my team members, who's actually an engineer who is in charge of design management, raises his hand and goes, oh yeah, I've done website wireframe design all through college. I got this. So I automatically found out I have a team member with a skill I didn't know existed. It's a skill now that I'm monetizing with a client and thinking differently. The second example is in marketing. So before this, we didn't have to do a lot of marketing. People sort of found us and we were doing the work and we could only handle so much volume, et cetera. Well, now we have volume, we have capacity. So I redeployed some of my team in marketing, and I basically told everybody in my group, go find projects, right? You find projects, it supports the studio, we all grow together. And so my team some of them have found great legs underneath them in marketing and reaching out to their contacts, their network, and I'm seeing them grow, and they're building presentations on our studio capabilities and doing the work that I would typically have all done myself. So I would really encourage everybody to look at the resources you have. You can do internal projects. I think that's great, but also think about what all the tools you have in your studio or company toolbox, because you might not be using them all. And it could be super untapped energy and availability in there to maybe grow your business in new ways, which is what we're doing. We've pivoted slightly into we're still doing our core business, but we've find a little bit more on the side, and we found where the projects are, and representing ourselves in maybe a different way, and elevating certain talent skill sets instead of other ones now, is really providing a lot of value to us.
And in this time of uncertainty, Cynthia, you spend a lot of times working with museums and guiding museums through the creative process. Tell me a little bit about, when it comes to museums, exactly what they can be doing right now when it comes to, let's say, grant writing, when it comes to finding maybe some new sources of funding, or working on their next project.
So in the museum world, we saw a rush, and I don't mean that as a pejorative, but we saw a push to get material online, to get digital content very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. Museums are of and for and by and part of their communities. And as community after community had to switch to learn at home, I'm not going to call it homeschooling because it's radically different, had to switch to learn at home and things like that, museums really stepped into that gap and that need. We also saw people turning to the arts for comfort and succor. But now we're seeing some pretty massive layoffs. We're seeing layoffs really hit frontline staff and education staff in particular. And this is a real inflection point, I believe, for museums. Their traditional funding model does not work. If this is what happens when there is a global crisis, and it's not the first time that this has happened in the museum world, we saw it in 2008. They can't keep doing this. They can't keep repeating this structure. And so it behooves them to look at how have they been doing grant writing? How have they been doing donor development? When we look at traditional donor development in museums, it is, call up the Hollywood casting agent and say, give me a donor, and you're going to get the older white dude kind of donor look, or you're going to get the tech money from Silicon Valley. But that's not the face of donorship today. It's really not. There's a great study out of Canada about diversity in the giving community, and we're not tapping that. We are used to going after I want the 5 million grant, I want the $5 million donation, the 10 million, the 20, the $100 million donation, as opposed to building these intentional relationships with emerging, wealth isn't quite the right term, but emerging donor communities. And we're going to have to look at that in the museum world. And we're going to have to look at how we use our endowments, if we have an endowment, and how we fund and position our projects. Back in the Stone Ages, when I was at the Museum of Science and Industry, we built into the budget lines and the fundraising for the new permanent exhibitions a pot of money for updates at year 3, year 5, and sometimes year 7.
Sure.
A lot of institutions don't do that anymore. And that's going to be even more critical to weather these storms. If you know that you already have the money there and set aside to help you continue to update and operate, even if the market tanks.
We're going to see if we can't bring back in Brian Morrow into our discussion. Brian's signal dropped.
Maybe?
There
Yeah.
he is.
There we go.
Hey, Brian, can you hear us?
I can hear you. And Cynthia.
Hey!
Fantastic. All right.
Welcome.
So earlier we were talking, Brian, that you have folks on your team who are talented in different ways and they can do different things. 10 years ago, if we attempted something like this, there would be a control room full of people, right behind me, hiding in this other room, and I'd have different cameras I'm now my own director. Technology has allowed me to actually switch different cameras to bring you guys in and out. So we're excited to welcome back Brian Morrow after the signal drop. Brian, next question goes to you. When it comes to, let's say, working lean, you have found success creating what you call tribes. What is the tribe mentality and how can we get it to work for us?
So everyone has a tribal mentality. We learned it, and when we grew up through high school, elementary school, and we learned it on the kickball field of the playground, right?
Yeah.
Tribes and teams. It's how we're programmed. So taking that sort of attitude, as soon as everything fell apart, there was this moment of chaos, and we'll call it whatever that was, March 10th, where everything fell apart, whatever day that was. It was actually March 11th, my birthday, is when I started feeling it. That we had to have the 24 hours or 48 hours to, even for me to realize my business model needs to be thrown in the garbage very quickly, and it's time to make a new one. And so that new business model also couldn't include me just trying to do all of this on my own, save 7 full-time jobs, save work from freelancers, help our clients now who are in a complete panic mode and don't know what to do. So how do I become stronger? And I found myself as a small business owner, which is what we are, we're a small business, alone. And so reaching out to my other small business owners, and I'm talking other small teams and studios and groups of people in Orlando. There's actually 4 of us that have formed sort of our own tribe. And what that's allowing us to do is, number one, I have someone to talk to as a leader. So, because I'm a small organization, and I've been through more than my team has. So my experience, I need someone equal vetting that can help me vet my ideas. Number two, it gives more reach. So we didn't form a big, complicated, just like you, Scott, in the back of the day, there'd be a big production studio behind this. You know what? Forget all that. Stop, stop, stop. It's way too complicated. This is just fine. Just like my new tribe. We don't need a big contract and, oh, we're going to form a partnership and isn't this great? You know what we did? We had cocktails on Friday at 4. We all sort of blood swore to each other that we'd help each other. The end, right? Because they're my friends and we're going to help each other. So we did that. And what that's allowing us to do is for us small companies not to go spend each of us spend the same amount of time talking to the same people, trying to find the potential new projects. Instead, we're dividing and conquering. And the rules of the game are, if you get the job, you hire from within. So we hire each other back.
Okay.
And so what this is allowing us to do is to focus our limited time we have, support ourselves, and work as a solid team together and a little bit of a friendship. And it will probably kind of go its way when the economy and the projects all go its way. But I would just recommend, this is a thing that's worked well for me and for my colleagues that are in my tribe, in our tribe together. And it just works. And they're people I trust and know that I've known for 20 years in the business. They are my friends. And so we can help each other. But what it's doing is it's giving us backbone, and it's giving us support, and it's actually bringing us work. And it's bringing me work in places that I wouldn't go find it elsewise. And the reverse is happening. I just hired 2 of my tribe members this morning to do.
Wow.
Yeah, just
Really?
like that. Yeah.
Great.
Fantastic. And do you think that your client list will grow from this?
We think so. And I think this will speak a little bit to the future of what the industry, the design side of our industry might look like. There's no crystal ball, and Cynthia doesn't have the answer, and I don't have the answer yet. But the ball, I can actually see the outline of the ball now, right? Before it was just all in chaos. I couldn't see anything. I can see that there's a ball, like an outline of a ball distant in the fog, and I want to get closer to it. And that's probably a month or 2 away to really be able to read the ball and the tea leaves. But we know it exists, and I know that ball is different than the one that we dropped in March, and it will not look the same come March for sure. Sorry, come June or May or even March next year. It will be different, guaranteed. And that's like my last piece of like sort of where my head, and this is Brian's thoughts, and no one's told me these. I've just made these up, so you can throw them in the garbage, or maybe I'll be true, or maybe you'll kick me and down the stairs at IAAPA this year if I said something wrong. But I really,
Nobody is going to kick you down the stairs at Expo. Come to
those escalators are very scary after a vodka. Anyway, the thing that I think is going to be different is it's not going to look the same as it did in February this year. So just know that's going to be the truth, and what it will look like we're going to figure out very soon, but it will be different, and I'm setting myself up to operate differently. So I can be in the right place in the market and be ready to go, whatever that may be, and be willing to try sort of anything that could use our talents to drive into other parts of the business world. So, and do it with the tribe, much more fun.
And if you're just joining us here, streaming live on Facebook, we are talking to two different creative leaders in the global attractions industry. If you have a question, go ahead and type that in. Or if you got in a little bit late, no worries. This entire stream will be posted and archived on IAAPA's Facebook page immediately following today's presentation. So Cynthia Sharp, you are with Think Well, based right there in your own home in Kansas. Tell me, when it comes to, let's say, working collaboratively, like what Brian was saying, but doing it in a new way where, because we're all in this together, that now that nine-headed hydra who gets in the room and is such a dominant factor when you're being creative, that guy's gone. Explain that.
I will admit freely that when ThinkWell shifted to optional work from, so we shifted to in the LA office, we shifted to optional work from home when it looked like the cheese might be sliding off the cracker. And then a couple days later, when it was evident the cheese was going to slide off the cracker, we switched to telecommuting entirely. I had a little bit of schadenfreude at all the people reaching out to me going, how have you done this for 16 years? I'm 2 hours into telecommuting, and this is driving me bonkers. My answer to your question actually ties nicely to a question that Abby posted in the chat, which is, what can museums learn from how we all manage our teams to be more nimble and able to pivot? Seeing small teams do much better during this time than larger institutions that are holding on to past practices. Museums move, generally speaking, at a glacial pace. Museums are really not good at being nimble traditionally. We are super hardcore about keeping those teams small, Abby, and not letting them grow. And as easy as it is to get everybody onto a Google Video Hangout or Zoom or what have you, being really intentional in keeping the room, the virtual room, really small is helping to not have one voice be really dominant. It's also really important to have someone who's heads up on that team, very doggedly doing the practically like a professor in college going, that's great, so-and-so. Can we hear so-and-so, what are your thoughts on this? And just actually throwing it to other people. It sounds so simple, but it's really important, even more so now that we're on virtual. Abby, to be really specific for you, we will, when we get a project in, we will kick it off with sort of the entire universe of disciplines that will be involved eventually. But then that core team is kept really small and tight. When we worked on a project for a major planetarium, for instance, which was master planning the entire space, all of front of house and all of back of house, the core team for that entire project was 6 people. And that was it. So even though we're a big company, we keep our teams tight and small so that we stay nimble. And as we go through the life of a project, we will bring in those other individuals and disciplines that we involved in kickoff at the beginning so they have an idea what the project is. They're not coming in blind, but we don't have that giant team around the table for every meeting. And then we're just really hardcore about essentially basic meeting etiquette virtually, with throwing it to other people, making sure everybody's technology is working, really detailed agenda in advance, and state the goals for the meeting at the beginning. Do roll calls so that we make sure everybody's technology is working and everybody has the physical capacity to be heard. And then really being intentional and drawing other people out within the body of the meeting.
Fantastic. Brian, I'm going to bring you back into the conversation. We have a question here from Alexander. Alexander asks, will social distancing play a part in the future of creative design, which I can see play a part in our society?
So my current thinking, and it's just me, but we're talking with theme park operators about this and projects that are now morphing and changing to accommodate this. It is of top of mind for the next 12 months. And the question becomes, will it become top of mind forever? I don't think it will be forever. I don't, there's I've read some articles that this could be as dramatic as the ADA Act was for design. I'm not sure it's that extreme of an impact to the overall.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, I had a phone call, but I believe,
The wonders of modern technology and working from home.
But I believe it will affect the next 12 months. And I think the things that we're being asked to work on relate to modifications to existing experiences so they compare for Q3, Q4, and what that might look like.
And can you give us a peek at what that might look like?
So strangely enough, our team has this, including myself, with most people don't know, we have a background in the haunt industry. So we've been talking to the and we do, as a company, we do live events and festivals as well. So we've been talking to some folks related to Q3, which is the beginning of the haunt season, September, October, of how do we prepare for that, and how do we get our feet rolling? And our recommendation to our clients has been, let's work on a plan now, and then we can execute, and a plan easily executable that doesn't require capex, which is most important for everybody. And what is the date that we execute that plan? And you're going to know more in 30 days than you know right now on if you should or how you should execute that plan. And it does mean things like removing conga lines. It does mean things like more personal experiences. But what we love about this is that we've been selling, much like most design firms and experience teams, is these personal, boutique, small, intimate experiences. Well, guess what? Come Q3, the parks and facilities are not going to be probably at their exact capacity they were planning on being. So there's going to be capacity available. So you're going to have less people that are going to want a little bit more space. So how do we take advantage of all these things in the market, which are the needs, and make them a better experience? And these boutique, smaller, intimate experiences are what people are going to be comfortable with. And they're easy sells, because they're different, and now they're actually a new experience model as well. It's not brand new, but it can be new. But I think you're going to see it deployed in much larger institutions, which is a golden hurdle that could not be crossed for years, even for me in corporate design. Couldn't get it over the hurdle because of capacity. But now, guess what? You could. Really interesting and really exciting.
With the limited time that we have left, we always like to end these chats on looking forward with some hope. Tell me right now, Cynthia, how, let's say, this kind of new normal that we're working in right now allows you to be more creative.
So I'm obviously an outlier in that I've been telecommuting for so long. Yeah. But what
16 years.
Yes. 16 years.
All stuck in that one little room there.
One little room, raising a kid during all of it too. So my heart goes out to all of you who are currently dealing with like second grade at home. Looking at how companies are changing their mindset about distance is really wonderful. ThinkWell has traditionally worked with folks in a variety of places. We have multiple offices. We're used to doing this, but I'm watching other institutions and companies go, oh, we don't all actually need to be in the same room. Yeah. And so the ability to capitalize on, this is the absolute best person for this thing. This is the most creative, most wonderful person, and here's their incredible body of work. And it no longer matters that they're in Seattle. We can get them on a team. That mind shift of, we don't all need to be around the big conference table with the big boards. That's That's exciting to me because it's going to blow the doors open on who's doing the work. And that's a sea change.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, you agree?
1,000,000%. And so we were, our organization was actually built around a distributed studio model. We have a studio. It's like 1,200 square feet, and we use it 30% of the time, only when we need to come together, and primarily because clients want a space to sit with the team. That's what the showroom, and we're all the mannequins. We look really cute in it, right? But the work is really done at home. And what I'm loving, what I'm seeing happening because of necessity, is that I'm tasking my studio leaders with getting with more rope without me holding the rope at all, and they're taking the rope and they're excelling at it. I've got teams that I can't believe the volume of work coming from the team now that they know they're actually in control. So as a leader, I've been giving a lot of rope to those guys. You go take care of this client and this event you're working on, because I know you know how to do it, and I can't watch over your shoulder because I can't watch over your shoulder, and I'm not going to talk to you all day long on the phone. And it's giving, they're growing and they're blossoming and they're excelling. And I think when we come out of this, I'm going to have a stronger team because of it.
Tell us real quick in the time we have left, Brian. I also want to talk about what you have described as the decade of collaboration, that for our owners and operators, those who have physical spaces, because folks come to their attractions. Tell me, in the years to follow here, they can lean on each other, and essentially that tide rises all boats.
It does. It's kind of like the tribe mentality I was speaking about with us and other smaller design studios that have similar skills, but also additional skills. The same thing, I think, can be an opportunity for the operators of the IAAPA industry. You know, why is the FEC sitting here not working on a co-branded ticketing plan with the putt-putt course located here, right? Why is the museum here not working with this museum right next door to them to create a better, wider, more value-oriented product for their consumer for a limited time in order to garner the guests back in? So I think my only piece of advice there, because it's working for me on the design side, so I can only speak to that, but there's got to be opportunity in nearby, adjacent, same neighborhood, same city, same marketplace, who thought they were competitors now need to become colleagues.
Brian Morrow, Cynthia Sharp, thank you both very much for joining us and your transparency. Those watching from home, Lacey here says, I love how you both are completely focused on establishing transparency and trust while everything else in the world is all confusion and uncertainty. Wait to see what's our balance and step in. So we greatly appreciate the insights from Cynthia Sharp with Thinkwell, Brian Morrow with B. Morrow Productions. Thank you both. Thank you for getting creative with us this morning. We greatly appreciate all of your insight.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us as well. I'm Fun World Managing Editor Scott Feiss. On behalf of Team IAAPA and all of my colleagues around the world who are working at home, continue to working for the betterment of the global attractions industry, we thank you for joining us. And just a reminder, we all will get through this together as one united